Bon dia a tothom, buenos días, good morning. En breus instants començarà l'acte d'investidura de doctor Honoris Causa del doctor Richard Boyatzis. Aquest acte acadèmic té un cerimonial i simbologia molt especial que ve de molt lluny. El doctorat Honoris Causa ja va ser definit com a grau acadèmic en una llei de 1462. És per això que en el món universitari ha conservat la litúrgia que es va instaurar al segle XV. Com a curiositat, els colors de les togues i birrets que porten els membres de la comitiva simbolitzen els diferents àmbits de coneixement i les especialitats acadèmiques corresponents. Negre el rector, taronja ciències socials, grana dret, blau cel humanitats, blau elèctric ciències, marró enginyeria, etc. Els agrairem que es posin dempeus en diferents moments de l'acte. En primer lloc, quan entri la comitiva del claustre togat. En segon lloc, quan el doctorand entri a la sala acompanyat del padrí. En tercer lloc, en el moment de la investidura. També quan es canti l'himne universitari del Gaudeamus i, finalment, quan surti la comitiva. Moltes gràcies per la seva atenció i, sobretot, pel seu interès en participar en aquest acte acadèmic, que és, si m'ho permeten, una veritable festa per a tota la comunitat universitària. D'aquesta manera els agrairem que estiguin atents a les indicacions que els anirem donant en determinats moments. Desitgem que gaudeixin molt d'aquest acte. Moltes gràcies.
Directora general d'Esade, doctora Eugènia Vieto, secretària general de la Universitat, doctora Anna Berga, doctor Miquel Gassiot, rector de la nostra universitat de l'any 1994 al 2002, doctor Jordi Montanya, rector de la Universitat de Vic, Universitat Central de Catalunya, vicerrectors, membres del patronat de la Universitat Ramon Llull i de les institucions federades, directors generals de les institucions, membres dels òrgans de govern de la universitat i membres de l'equip directiu d'Esade, familiars del doctor Boyatzis, representants de la Universitat Internacional de Catalunya i de la Universitat de Navarra, autoritats, membres de la societat civil, professors, estudiants, personal d'administració i serveis, senyores i senyors. S'obre la solemne sessió d'investidura del doctor Richard Boyatzis, Distinguished University Professor de la Case Western Reserve University, Ohio, Estats Units, i titular de la càtedra Horvitz d'Empresa Familiar com a doctor Honoris Causa de la Universitat Ramon Llull. En primer lloc, té la paraula la doctora Anna Berga, secretària general de la Universitat.
Acta de nomenament del doctor Richard Boyatzis com a doctor honoris causa de la Universitat Ramon Llull. La Junta de Govern, a proposta de l'Escola Superior d'Administració i Direcció d'Empreses Esade de la Universitat Ramon Llull, en la sessió de 17 de març de 2016, va prendre l'acord de concedir el grau de doctor honoris causa de la Universitat Ramon Llull al doctor Richard Boyatzis.
Es prega el doctor Joan Manel Batista Foguet, professor catedràtic de la Universitat i padrí del guardonat, que vagi a buscar-lo i que l'acompanyi a aquesta aula magna. Professor Boyatzis, be very welcome to our university. Tot seguit té la paraula el padrí del guardonat que presentarà els seus mèrits.
Doctor Josep Maria Garrell, rector magnífic de la Universitat Ramon Llull, doctora Anna Berga, secretària general de la Universitat Ramon Llull, doctora Eugènia Vieto, directora general d'Esade, estimat professor Richard Boyatzis, degans, vicedegans, professorat i personal d'Esade, personal de la Universitat Ramon Llull, professors d'altres universitats, familiars i amics. Permeteu-me que no llegeixi, com és costum, tota la laudatio. Està escrita i la podreu llegir. L'he escurçat perquè, coneixent el professor Boyatzis, estic convençut que voldrà aprofitar tot el temps del que disposi. Permeteu-me també que comenci i acabi amb la llengua del professor Boyatzis. In a solemn act such as this, the laudation addresses the brilliant career of generally a foreign scholar and always from another university. Professor Richard Boyatzis is indeed an acclaimed foreign scholar, with a broad and impressive international profile. He's recognized by his studies in the field of leadership, emotional intelligence, and personal change. Nevertheless, Richard is no stranger to this university. On the contrary, since 2001, his contribution on the launching and consolidation of the LEAD program with Professor Serla Bosch, somewhere here, and also on our research, his contribution to our Development Leadership Research Center has made him our friend. On one hand, students had greatly improved their competencies. On the other, he has strengthened our research enormously. Richard has undoubtedly contributed to the excellent position of Esade in the international rankings. Anteriorment a aquesta institució ha investit doctors honoris causa Antonio Damasio i Howard Gardner. Aquesta seqüència no és accidental. Això il·lustra clarament la visió de la institució, de la universitat, cap a la docència del futur i també cap al desenvolupament dels seus alumnes. Sense l'aportació de Damasio a l'estudi de l'emoció, estaríem encara en el paradigma dualista de Descartes entre cognició i emoció. Sense la de Gardner ens sentiríem còmodes amb la visió unidireccional de Piaget, menys valorant qualsevol altre tipus de dimensió que no fos cognitiva. La contribució de Boyatzis ha ajudat a que ara hom parli de competències i també ha ajudat a comprendre que els somnis, els ideals, ajuden a abastar el canvi. I ha ajudat també a entendre que durant el procés podem desenvolupar competències, aquestes que ens ajudaran a assolir els nostres somnis. No sorprèn, doncs, que ara tant Gardner com Boyatzis recorrin Antonio Damasio per intentar esbrinar quines són els fonaments neurològics de la seva recerca en el camp de les intel·ligències, en el camp del desenvolupament personal. Actualment, Richard Boyatzis és Distinguished University Professor de la Case Western Reserve University. A més, és catedràtic de diverses assignatures del món del management i des del 2001 és professor visitant a Esade, adscrit al nostre Departament de Direcció de Persones i Organització. La producció intel·lectual de Richard Boyatzis inclou com 200 articles científics, 8 llibres, alguns d'ells bestsellers i altres llibres fonamentals pels que fem recerca, especialment The Competent Manager, publicat el 82, una fita per ser el primer estudi reconegut de competències amb directius. Estem parlant de l'any 82. Així mateix, Innovation in Professional Education és el referent que fem servir a les escoles de negocis per introduir competències. Què dir del Primal Leadership, amb Dan Goleman, Anne McKee. Han venut més d'1 milió d'exemplars, traduït a 40 llengües. O què dir de la part d'innovació del professor Boyatzis, que amb 3 MOOCs ha aconseguit ja més de 800 inscrits de quasi 200 països. Però Boyatzis és un innovador, però és també un visionari. És un visionari per les seves idees. En el món acadèmic, alguns han estat reconeguts per tenir una gran idea. El professor Boyatzis n'ha tingut 3 de grans. Òbviament, la de les competències en el compliment en el treball, la teoria del canvi intencional i la dels múltiples nivells de la personalitat. És un visionari perquè ell ja preveia que la formació en competències soft era tan important com qualsevol altra assignatura de les que s'expliquen a les escoles de management. 40 anys després, he fet una pausa, 40 anys després, els acords de Bolònia sobre l'educació superior europea ho han fet palès i li han donat la raó. Però han passat 40 anys. Però el que distingeix el professor Boyatzis, almenys des del punt de vista d'un professor universitari, és aquesta versatilitat que té, aquesta habilitat de combinar el rigor científic amb una àmplia experiència en el món real de les organitzacions. Durant 50 anys s'ha dedicat a la recerca acadèmica, a les aplicacions pràctiques, a la utilitat, però és que ja des dels principis, amb el seu tutor David McClellan, el de la teoria dels motius socials, ja va fundar una empresa de consultoria, McBain, que després seria part de Hay Group. Al món de les organitzacions ell és reconegut com el pare del moviment de les competències en recursos humans. De fet, en el 2012 i el 2014, he seleccionat aquesta transparència, Boyatzis va ser ja inclòs entre els 10 pensadors més influents del món en el camp de la psicologia de les organitzacions. En el rànquing que va publicar Human Resource Magazine, amb una enquesta a més de 18.000 directors de recursos humans. Avui sabem que les competències es desenvolupen des dels nostres orígens. Aleshores em pregunto, o us preguntareu, quines són les arrels del professor Boyatzis? Els seus pares eren immigrants grecs. Es van conèixer als anys 30 a New York. El seu pare va tenir que servir en l'exèrcit dels Estats Units a la Segona Guerra Mundial, jungla de Panamà, Regne Unit, Normandia, d'on va tornar l'any 45. No és estrany que Richard Boyatzis fos nascut al 46. Com gairebé tots els grecs de New York, el seu pare es va treballar en el ram de la restauració. Cambrer, 7 dies a la setmana. És indubtable que el va educar amb la importància del treball dur, la perseverància, però també, immigrants grecs, de la família i dels estalvis, la frugalitat que diu ell pròpia dels catalans. Als anys 50, l'escola considerava que Richard era cognitivament lent. Era molt i molt tranquil. Parlava amb accent grec i si bé sabia llegir en grec, no sabia llegir en anglès. La seva mare va prendre una decisió i el va treure de l'escola i li va ensenyar les lliçons durant unes quantes setmanes ella mateixa. Llavors el va tornar a l'escola. És indubtable que la seva mare li va infondre autoestima, potser un pèl massa, i un coratge necessari per defendre amb el que ell creu. Als anys 57, quan es va llançar l'Sputnik a l'espai, als Estats Units qualsevol persona que fos bona en matemàtiques i en ciència era molt buscada. Llavors sí, la seva escola el va introduir en un programa especial que barrejava la Hay School, l'institut, amb 2 anys d'universitat. Entre el 60 i el 64, Richard va estudiar i treballar molt. Treballar per què? Perquè ell volia anar al Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Era el seu gran somni, ser enginyer. Aquests estalvis li van permetre pagar-se la matrícula. I encara va tenir temps per fundar 2 bandes de música que tocaven a clubs i a festes. Ara bé, aquesta música que sentiu no és d'ell. La canta el seu fill Marc, que també està en el món del management, però s'ha dedicat professionalment al món de la música i no aquesta, però ha composat altres cançons que estan en el mateix disc. Thank you, Marc. En el 64, finalment, Richard Boyatzis s'ingressa a l'MIT. Es graduaria com a enginyer aeronàutic i astronàutic en el 68 i llavors coneix nada menys que David Kolb, el de l'experiential learning. I ell l'introdueix el que després serà el seu tutor, David McClellan. Els 2 se'l convencen per estudiar psicologia a Harvard. fa un màster, després es doctora l'any 73 en Psicologia Social, però ja durant aquells anys comença a treballar amb tots dos, amb David Kolb i David McClellan, amb el que després seria la seva teoria del canvi intencional. Aconseguir el talent adequat per ser efectiu es remunta a l'antiga Grècia de Plató i també a la Xina. Aleshores ja es volien identificar aquelles característiques de la persona que, a banda de la intel·ligència, permetessin que fos efectiva en el lloc de treball. Això és el que avui en dia anomenem competències. Però fos sens dubte l'article de David McClellan que va publicar l'American Psychologist, Testing for Competencies Rather than for Intelligence, la que va iniciar el moviment de les competències. Ara bé, el primer llibre, el primer estudi sobre competències el va fer als anys 70 el professor Boyatzis, on va identificar les característiques diferencials de l'efectivitat entre els alts directius de diferents nacionalitats i diferents organitzacions. El 82 assoleix dos fites importants, la seva publicació amb David McClellan en el Journal of Applied Psychology i el seu llibre fonamental The Competent Manager. Segons Boyatzis, una competència es defineix com una sèrie de comportaments relacionats entorn a una intenció subjacent que porten a màxima efectivitat. Però a diferència d'altres constructes, sentiu molt a mi aquesta paraula, com ara la intel·ligència, això no es va descobrir en una literature review, en el despatx d'un professor. Això es va trobar a través d'un procediment inductiu, buscant l'acompliment en el món real, en el món de les organitzacions. Aquesta idea, de fet, es va desenvolupar a la taula del menjador del professor Boyatzis a Cambridge, Massachusetts, una nit de l'any 74, hem sentit moltes vegades aquesta història, quan un grup d'investigadors miraven de descobrir quina era la millor manera de captar patrons efectius en el món de les organitzacions i en la vida personal. Van fer servir una simbiosis entre l'entrevista d'incidents crítiques del Flanagan i els tests de percepció temàtica, i això els va permetre identificar a les persones quines característiques de les persones que mostraven un acompliment més alt que la resta tenien. I se'n van donar compte que aquestes característiques eren de tipus personal, emocional o interpersonal social. En conseqüència, es va proposar el concepte de competència com un diferenciador crític de l'acompliment amb més poder predictiu, bastant més poder predictiu que la intel·ligència. Des de llavors, qualsevol organització d'una certa grandària utilitza algun tipus de gestió de recursos humans per competències. I, òbviament, és la pràctica habitual de qualsevol firma de les consultores, no? Bé, avui tampoc ens enganyem. Des de l'educació bàsica fins a la universitat, tothom defenem que desenvolupem competències, no? El 1980, Boyatzis desenvolupa la teoria del canvi intencional. Intencional, coneguda llavors com d'aprenentatge autodirigit. Ell proposa un enfocament molt més holístic que les teories que hi havia en aquell moment univariables, vull canviar el peso, coses concretes, i proposa un plantejament molt més holístic i, a més, explica el per què es produeix el canvi, que llavors no es feia. I per què aquest canvi té necessàriament que estar regulat per la voluntat o la intenció. Per això parlem de canvi intencional. Els canvis, tots ho sabem, no són lineals, són discontinus i s'experimenten com a epifanies, descobriments. Segons aquesta teoria de Richard, l'impulsor emocional del canvi és sempre una visió personal, un somni, una vocació. El segon descobriment és el jo real, a partir de l'avaluació que fan d'un mateix els altres dels teus punts forts i els punts dèbils. Aquest jo real després se'ls compara amb l'ideal i a partir d'aquesta comparació surt la tensió necessària per iniciar el procés de canvi. Això condueix a establir una agenda d'aprenentatge adequada per arribar al lloc ideal, al lloc ideal i assolir-lo, fer-lo realitat. Després ve la implementació pràctica d'aquesta agenda per experimentar amb els nous comportaments, pensaments o percepcions. La rellevància en el procés d'aquestes relacions personals que teniu aquí al mig, ressonants, són el coach, però és també la parella, que ens coneix més que qualsevol altre. Són els amics. Perdó, gràcies. La importància d'aquestes relacions ens va portar a preguntar-nos amb el Richard per què això només es treballa a les consultories i a més després no t'ho expliquen. Des de llavors han sortit unes quantes tesis en aquest camp del coaching, bàsicament. Però és que, a més, recerques actuals en el camp de la neurologia, neurofisiologia, de fet, mostren els mecanismes neuronals relacionats amb el fet d'estar obert a noves idees i, en definitiva, l'aprenentatge. Aquests mecanismes s'estimulen quan el coaching es fa amb compassió, amb el sentit de Confuci, no el nostre. És dir, quan el coach es centra en els somnis i en els valors. Paro per dir, i no amb una sèrie d'objectius. Perquè llavors s'estimulen possibilitats, esperances. Quan, en canvi, l'enfocament es fa per obligació, by compliance, ens n'anem a la part tancada del nostre cervell i els resultats són absolutament diferents. Sento dir la notícia, però el coaching per obligació és segurament l'error més greu en els que ens trobem els mestres, els psicòlegs, els metges i els clergues quan intentem guiar amb una persona a través del procés de canvi. Okay, now I am in the home stretch of the talk. My personal understanding of Richard's contribution is intimately linked to the most distinctive traits of his personality, what I would summarize with the 4 C's. First, curiosity, which has led him to inquire about the factors that facilitate change in individuals and social groups. Following his mentor's Macallan's advice, Richard has been changing specialty topics every 10 years or so. Richard began first by focusing on addictive substance abuse, then on competencies and their development, that led him to develop his theory about emotional intelligence. Finally, his theory about change. He has recently begun, 3-4 years ago, searching the neurological underpinnings of his theories. Secondly, compassion, Confucius compassion, which certainly was influenced by the enormous importance that his father placed on family and close-knit relationships. Later, it reemerges in his doctoral thesis, in which love, tenderness, and affection were instrumental in helping others. Compassion has played, since then, a vital role in his relationships. First with Macallan and Kolb, then with your colleagues at Weatherhead, also with enduring collaboration with Esade, and more recently with Kafoskari. Thirdly, his calling in connection with his personal vision and his dream is help to develop people and change into their ideal self and contribute to humanity's sense of hope and opportunity and growth. To delve into what is important and personally relevant is crucial for any pioneer. To maintain consistency, despite many obstacles and frustrating neglects. Lastly, his calling has undoubtedly led him to develop courage. The fourth of his personality traits, I would emphasize probably his mother instigated this in him when, as mentioned, she urged him to fight tirelessly for his beliefs. As a visionary, it is only in the last 10 to 20 years that Richard's ideas have started to be accepted and be considered legitimate. He is recognized now as a leader in the field. University Ramon Llull identified this. Curiosity, compassion, calling, and courage embody everything that Richard does to make society more helpful, enlightened, and compassionate, to help people and organizations improve their effectiveness, well-being, and growth. Now, let's enjoy Richard's lesson.
Moltes gràcies. Ara es prega el doctor Batista Fogat que acompanyi el professor Boyatzis a la presidència. Proposta de l'Escola Superior d'Administració i Direcció d'Empreses d'Esade i amb l'aprovació de la Junta de Govern i el Patronat de la Universitat Ramon Llull heu estat nomenat doctor honoris causa en testimoniatge i reconeixença dels vostres rellevants mèrits. En virtut de l'autoritat que m'ha estat conferida, us faig lliurament d'aquest títol. També us lliuro el birret llorejat com a símbol i distintiu venerat i antiquíssim del magisteri. Porteu-lo com a corona dels vostres mereixements i estudis. Rebeu l'anell que en l'antiguitat tenia el costum de lliurar-se en aquesta venerada cerimònia, com a emblema del privilegi de signar i segellar els dictàmens, consultes i arbitratges de la vostra ciència i professió. Rebeu també aquests guants blancs, símbols de la puresa que han de preservar les vostres mans, signes uns i altres de la distinció de la vostra categoria. I perquè us heu incorporat a aquesta universitat, rebeu ara en nom del seu claustre l'abraçada de fraternitat dels qui s'honoren i congratulen de ser els vostres companys i companyes.
Thank you deeply for this honor. Thank you, Rector Garel, Director General Vieto, Doctora Paraga, Dean Jonathan, right, Wareham, and certainly my close friends and colleagues, Professor João Manuel Batista, Ricardo Sirlavos, Seferi Soler, Mark Correa, Carlos Losada, who couldn't be here today because he had some political activities, and students, alumni, and staff. There is no greater honor than to be thought of as having contributed to your development and to be thought of by one's peers in the field as having made these contributions. As a former Greek, Greek-American, I am not often, as my wife would note, brought to humility, but this is certainly one of those moments. The development of ideas is, as we all know, a rocky path. But unlike Odysseus' journey, there's no home to which we seek. There's no mythical Ithaca that we're trying to get to. That what happens is every time we discover something in our research, every time we help inspire the thoughts of it in our students or colleagues, we find another question. We find a further question. But it all serves a fundamental drive to learn. And we want to learn because we want to somehow metamorph, to change, not just to adapt, but to become something better. And not just alone. We want others to feel the emotional contagion of our excitement, of our discoveries, of the possibilities, to feel a deep sense of hope. Now, all of this, to be clear, is in service of helping people live better lives, to create a better society together, to liberate the passion in people, the possibilities in people, the nobility of the human spirit. That's at the heart of what we do as professors. It's not easy, and although people sometimes make fun of professors as not being grounded in reality, the dilemma is we're grounded in too many realities, and we suffer very often from this massive juggling of different priorities and different passions. But the heart of my work, thank you, João Manuel, for doing a very, very awesome, very impressive summary of a lot of the things I've been doing, and to helping you start to understand that what's at the heart of my work is always about how our relationships enable us to become who we are, to move to higher states. I disagree with Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist, who thought that the highest state of the human condition was cognitive self-actualization, where you can create new ideas in your brains. I believe the highest state of the human condition is to be in love, and love in all sense of the word, and caring. As I'm about to say, I think on the journey to understanding that, I have discovered how central a role hope plays in this. Caring and compassion, mindfulness, and being able to center and link to others and the natural world around us. But also things like playfulness, and how all of these things and the emotions that it stirs in each one of us are at the heart of a process of growth and development. Now, when I reflect on what I've learned in the first 50 years, and I am joyously thinking of it as the first 50 years, sorry, hon, I don't plan to retire soon, of my professional life, my immediate observation is that is I start to think about the key people who helped me along the way. We can tell our biography, our story, in terms of our accomplishments, like a resume. We can tell it in terms of where we've been or what we've done. But I think the part that becomes really human is when we talk about the people with whom we've had really caring, close relationships. So I'd like to start with an exercise. Those of you who have been with me in this hall and in others, I'm not going to go in to the audience and have you talk about it because I've been told this is too serious an event, so I can't do that. But I do want you to reflect for a minute. Who helped you the most in your life? As you think of your whole life, not just work, who helped you become the person you are, get to where you are? Go ahead and reflect on that. Think in your mind. I won't ask you to share names, but just think in your mind about the people in your life who have helped you the most. As you remember them, see if you can have a flash of memory of a moment with them, remembering what they said or did and how you felt. I've done this exercise in about 65 countries on all 7 continents, and I can assure you humans react in very much the same way. If we had the time, if I was going to take my full 2 hours today in my talk, I would venture to ask you to start to think about those moments and share them. But people will often think about their mother or father, grandparents, aunts or uncles. Sometimes you'll think about early teachers or coaches. Sometimes you'll think about an early manager and later a spouse or partner. And what people say is they first feel a deep sense of gratitude, of pride, that someone loved them that much, someone cared about them, that they could give to them something special. Very often, immediately from that sense of pride and appreciation, gratitude, people feel nostalgic, especially if the person has passed away, and you feel sadness over the loss. People report feeling elevated and serene and yet excited. People report feeling very open. These emotions, these sensations become very important in the process of learning and change. I will explain in a moment that if you have any of those emotions in a moment, you're entering a physiological state called the parasympathetic nervous system. And what we know today that we didn't know 25, 35, 45, 50 years ago is that that is the state, that is the physiological state that is key to our openness to learning. The most important question I'm going to ask this morning, I'm actually not going to explore, but again, I'd like you to consider thinking about. Whose list will you be on? Whose list of the people who helped someone the most would you be on? I think there's only 2 ways to have a legacy in life, folks. One is to donate money to a great university like Ramon Llull. And the other, no, seriously, there's only really one way, and it's through the people that we've affected, we've touched, we've cared for. Before I launch into 6 points of the things that I would say I've learned in my career, I'd like to thank a group of my intellectual guides and mentors. The 2 major people guiding me and moving me out of the aerospace field, which was interesting and exciting in some ways, but into the inner mind of space, is David McClelland and David Kolb. Without them, I never would have found the field of psychology. To his dying day, my father described psychology as, the Greek word is saklamatis, which means foolishness. But there were many others who helped along the way. Ed Schein, Robert Rosenthal. If you study and read psychology, you know these people and their names. Ed Hollander, Warren Bennis, Paul Costa, Florence Skelly. And then some of my contemporaries who were very influential in creative moments along the way, Lyle Spencer, John Cotter, Melvin Smith, Ellen Van Osten. And my personal inspiration and repeatedly loving wife, Sandy, and my son, Mark, who never gave up on me, despite my perpetual preoccupation, and I've got to admit, decades of emotional unavailability while I'm pursuing all of these great thoughts and research. You still are the center of my life. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to go through 6 points of things that I've learned from all of this work that seem to be important in life. I'm going to try to go over at a high level of the key points, say what some of the implications might be, but leave the rest. So as a professor, I'm, of course, considering all sorts of resources for you. If you get intrigued by any of the ideas, please, Professors Serlavos and Jean-Marie Batista offer some great courses at Esade, and we have some great executive education activities. But there are also other things in terms of articles and plenty of videos on all these MOOCs. The courses at Esade aren't free, but the other things are all free, so you can access them. The first discovery, and I'm going to go more in chronological order, but was the sense that there really are a set of capabilities, a set of behavioral habits that we have that we call now emotional, social, and cognitive intelligence competencies. And they distinguish effective performance in every job studied in about 124 countries of the world, large, medium, and small, private sector, public sector, and nonprofit. They distinguish executives, managers, and professionals. And they become the DNA of human resource management systems, of how we help activate the one source of capital in an organization that we can't do anything else without. That's the human capital. The discoveries came amid a lot of controversy because back in the days in the 60s and before that, people thought cognitive capability was everything, and that if you were smart, that was enough to be great. It seems odd being honored with an honorary doctorate, being in the midst of so many people that contribute so much writing and are so smart that I would have to say smart has its limits. And that is, you can't not be smart to be effective, so you need cognitive capability. But above a certain level, it doesn't really help. So for example, if you want to use IQ as a measure, having an IQ above 120 or 130 does not help you be any better. And in fact, the results suggest that if you have IQs higher than that, you're more likely to spend more time in hospital wards, which I used to treat as alcoholics or as drug addicts, or be rendered to the basement of a building because you don't get along with your peers. So the role of cognitive capability is, of course, important, but we overplay it. And with a misguided nod to Descartes, we don't exist because we think. Thinking is one of the ingredients, but feeling and being able to build our relationships are the other parts of the message. And that's what we started to discover in 1970 and during the 70s when we did all this. As Jean-Manuel said in my early book, The Competent Manager, we first established in many organizations that these things really did link and predict performance. We now have a lot of more sophisticated research. One that was published just last February was of a study using engineers, not their managers, engineers in a major international manufacturing company. Half of the sample came from Germany, half from the US, their engineering divisions. And we were able to show that in predicting the effectiveness of the engineers, their emotional and social intelligence behaviors as seen by their peers on their project teams, not self-assessment, was powerful, more powerful than G, cognitive capability, your IQ, and personality. In fact, cognitive capability and personality contributed nothing in the statistical analysis. The emotional and social intelligence behaviors contributed 31% of what's called unique variance. This is huge. This says that even engineering is not an individual sport. It's a team sport. So we start to understand that the essence of our capability lies in this almost magical combination of cognitive ability, emotional ability in terms of processing and handling ourselves, and our social abilities. The breakthroughs we made in the measurement technology is always key. We know little about the internal workings of the brain if in 1992 the functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, had not come into existence. Other neuroimaging techniques that were around up till then gave us surface views of the brain, or we had to inject nuclear isotopes into a person's body to get a good PET scan. The same thing happens in the social sciences. And as we started to probe their fantasies and their unconscious thoughts and patterns, we also started to probe how those related to, that coming from Henry Murray and David McCullough, how those related to patterns of our behavior. How do we typically act? And more importantly, how do we make other people feel? And it's through all of these things over the years that we've explored a lot of different techniques, emerging with a 360-degree assessment, one that Dan Goldman and I developed back in 1995. And thanks to my colleagues here, in particular, Jean-Manuel Batista and Ricard Sorlavos, we have made it available to thousands of students at Esade through the LEAD and the LEAD platform. But we've also been able to contribute a whole series of research articles saying all sorts of very interesting things. For example, a response set on a social science survey or questionnaire, almost anywhere in the world, is done on a 5-point or 7-point scale. And this is kind of typical. People don't even question it. We discovered in a series, in particular Jean-Manuel and Ricard Sorlavos and myself discovered in a series of very carefully designed studies that in Europe, that doesn't work so well. That, to put it simply, a much more reliable way to capture somebody's views on things in Europe has to be basically a 10 or 11-point scale. Now, a lot of people still don't get this, but if you stop and think about it, almost everything in Europe is measured on a 10-point scale. The grades you give, I give A, B's, C's, and D's, occasionally an F. The grades you give are numbers of 1 to 10. So this very notion that a lot of research uses scales that aren't as reliable for European participants ends up being something that we came upon because something was happening in the research and we couldn't figure it out, and that's when we started to look at it. We've generated articles on gender differences between professional and personal relationships in terms of assessment and views of these behaviors, and all sorts of other kind of fascinating nuances that are not possible if we didn't have a group of us really curious about things who kind of push each other at times as to why we're believing something. Okay, that was the first discovery. There are these capabilities. It's beyond skills, and it's this combination. Second, that you can actually develop these competencies, that there might be a little bit of it that's determined by your initial genes, but even the geneticists today, the ones I've worked with and taught with, would tell you that by the time you're 21, your experiences and your environment have more to do with which of your genes are turned on or off than what you were born with. So we know that as adults, now you can develop all of these things. We weren't as confident about that decades ago because most of the time when we go about trying to help people learn, we don't do a very good job of it. Now, the difference between knowing and learning, I'll use a brief story. 2 years ago, before my wife and I moved from Cleveland to the Boston area, I was up in my office on the second floor of our house in Cleveland, and they were relaying gas pipes in the street, which is, very deep. It's like they hadn't done it in 100 years, so now they're digging up the streets. So she comes up to my office. I'm sitting at my computer, intensely focused on trying to word a response to a really very crass reviewer of one of my articles who kind of said all these nasty things, but still they didn't reject the article yet. So I was trying to invent the way to respond to them, but still, not give up everything. So I'm deeply into this thought, and my wife comes over, looks out the window, and she says, wow, those are huge machines. Did you see the size of that backhoe that they have? And I said, what? And she turned to me and she said, that wasn't very nice. And I literally, without thinking, I turned to her and I said, I'm too busy writing about emotional intelligence to do it. Although it was off the cuff in terms of my comment, it is a very genuine dilemma. That very often we don't pursue the very things that we teach and learn about because it's hard. We now have 39 longitudinal studies at Case Western Reserve University showing that we can develop these competencies in adults. We now have a series of them here at Esade. And this is important because learning and higher education is not what we thought it was. So let me share with you a few observations of what we now know about the human physiology and psychology of learning. First, colleagues, stop giving tests. They don't help. Well, they help the convenience of the faculty member. Performance assessment, which is testing the use of knowledge in situ, ends up being a great way to assess. So I'm not against grading and assessment, but I do think we have to be careful. The kind of tests we give students is on the whole irrelevant to education. You know, it's like if you want to learn to be a chef and you're learning to make tom yum goong soup, you don't fill out a multiple choice questionnaire on the ingredients. You produce it and you go over the aromas, the broth, the taste with your instructor. The other problem with tests is students always react to them the same way. They cram for them. They study intensely right before the test. The research now tells us that the more students cram, the faster the dump rate, the faster they forget. At a top 20 ranked program in the US management school, MBA program, the half-life of knowledge from the intro accounting course, which we would assume you have to remember to take the other courses, was 6.5 weeks. That's all people could remember when they took the final exam again. So one of the dilemmas is we inadvertently, in our methods, use techniques that have evolved over time, and we think they're good or useful, but sometimes they serve a different purpose. Paper and pencil tests, or now tests on computers, often serve the purpose of convenience and of easy assessment, rather than asking people in our classes, which is a little easier in fields like management and engineering, but to take the knowledge they've learned and use it in some real case or activity, and then come back and we process it. Stress does not help learning. Stress, even annoying stress, in the human body produces cognitive and perceptual impairment. You know, if you spray your nose with the epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline, noradrenaline, that induces the sympathetic nervous system, our peripheral vision, which is somewhere between 180 and 270 degrees, but our peripheral vision goes down to 30 degrees. And this is what happens in our openness to new ideas. So the more we either create or allow stress in our students, in our colleagues, through discourteous, inhuman reviews of articles. We can reject articles. We can say we don't agree with your methods. But very often as academic colleagues, we are vituperative in our reviews, far beyond the notion of human courtesy to disagree and to say, you know, we don't want to publish this. But this whole idea of stress, think of this, if we're trying to create openness to new ideas, why do we allow ourselves to use practices that close people? We know that there are different learning styles, and yet how often do we design our classes or our courses according to our own learning style as faculty? We know that there are activities, there are entire fields that activate the task-positive network in the brain, this part of the brain that allows you to analyze problems and solve problems and make decisions, which is a very important network. The problem is other major networks, like the default mode network, that's in different parts of the limbic system, posterior cingulate cortex, that allow you to be open to ideas and people, and At a Jesuit institution, it's relevant to say, and moral concerns of is it fair, is it just? That default mode network and the task positive network suppress each other. So every time you activate one, you suppress the other. So when we teach a course or a series of courses that are very analytic and we don't create any interaction that allows for the default mode network, we literally narrowly process the person, and that increases the degree of stress and forgetting. Perhaps the easiest fields to understand how to do this are the fields that have a more clear application, like management, engineering, and the medical fields. Because if we engage our students and our colleagues back and forth between the problems and the tasks and the people and the relationships, we actually hold the promise of teaching people what we believe will be the new frontier of not just waiting to find somebody who's good at going back and forth between these dominant networks, but being able to nurture it in each other. So, for example, studying. We now know that efficient studying, where you retain information, happens in 15 to 20-minute bursts, not longer than that. A lot of these discoveries are 10, 15 years old. A lot of them I mentioned are 30 to 40 years old. So part of what we've been pioneering, both at Weatherhead and here at Esade, are trying to put this to practice. But we run the risk. We run the risk of being caught in our own ideologies, thinking that, for example, an MBA program is all about money and numbers. It's really about money and numbers and people and relationships and how we integrate all of these things. Okay, third discovery. The competency development course, which can make these changes and has shown us we can change it, is based on, or that's how I've developed the intentional change theory that John Monod was talking about before. At first in 1979, I developed a curriculum for then the American Management Association that wanted to replace the MBA with an alternative that really focused on people learning to be managers and engineers. We have a problem in management schools. Since 1995, when I was on the board of the group that accredits, I was on one of the boards of the group that accredits business schools, and I was also on the board of trustees of the company that owns, the nonprofit that owns the GMAT test, because I'm an adversary of that kind of testing. But since then, we now have watched a sea change. More students are today enrolled in online MBA programs than the total enrollment in MBA programs in the early 90s in the world. So with graduate education, we're wrestling with a change. Now, undergraduate's different, has some different challenges, but still, the change is coming there as well. But with graduate education, we have to think about why somebody wants to learn, not that they should come to a place. That the process of learning is no more linked to people who are 24 than it is linked to people who come and live in a particular setting for 2 years. This course, the LEAD course, the Leadership Executive Assessment and Development, began to focus on doing this with 25 to 35-year-olds, and then we extended it to 45 to 65-year-olds. And soon, because I'm now 71, I want to keep the research going to 75 and 85-year-olds, that we really think we can make a difference. And we can make a difference not just in how people are learning interpersonal relationships and organizational behavior, we can make and leadership, we can make a difference in how people are learning operations, how people are learning finance. Because if we help to stimulate the whole person in a way which engages them emotionally and cognitively, the retention, the stickiness of the ideas, will be improved. It was really my honor when Ricard Serlavos approached me back in 2000, and Dean Mendoza and Director General Carlos Losada had asked me to bring this course in the shape it was in to Esade and to help with the research. And we ignited a lot of this. I mean, Ricard Serlavos is one of the most ingenious and effective educational innovators I have ever met in my life. And thank you, Ricard. Legions of students at Esade owe a lot to what you've done here. And as we were beginning, as Ricard was figuring out how we had to tailor the courses and change it and make it appropriate to the different student groups, we started to worry about the research. And that's when Jean-Manuel joined us, and the three of us, like the three musketeers, have been battling all sorts of foes. In this case, fortunately, they are cardinals since then. But it is this excitement that has led us to keep pushing out. I mean, the MOOCs that Jean-Manuel referred to, I hate online learning. I thought it was horrible to do. And yet my feeling is, it is so hard for people in a lot of parts of the world to learn just because they're stuck in a village in remote Pakistan or in a poor section of Barcelona. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to learn. But we've designed our processes to limit access, and not here, but in the United States, and its costs are outrageous. So we began a process of exploring how to change the pedagogy. There are politicians who think by eliminating the price of tuition, we will increase access to higher education. They're wrong. We will increase the competition for it, and it will lead to more elitism unless we expand the pedagogy to cover more people. Because in most of our universities, we are capacity constrained. We have only so much capacity. Things like the MOOCs are not an answer, but they answer a part of it that says, you know, especially today's people who are under 40 would prefer to get certain doses of material through video at their moment of convenience, during a coffee break, during a lunch break, in a half hour before they go to bed. I have emails and testimonies from people around the world to exactly that point. So I think it behooves us as faculty to keep experimenting, regardless of our field, with our pedagogy. And personally, I'm absolutely convinced the future of higher education, both undergraduate and graduate, it will lie in hybrid combinations of asynchronous learning. I mean, there should be a day very soon in which no one gives a lecture, except for in a moment like this, I guess. But in regular courses, because you can tape them and have people watch them at a different time. When they're relaxed, sitting with a glass of wine, they're learning, their stickiness is better. We will have synchronous online learning where people get together. Most of my average age of my degree students is 44. They come to campus once every 6 to 8 weeks. So in between, there's a lot of chat between Zoom and WebEx and Skype and just emails and telephone conversations. That's it, synchronous, and then face-to-face. But like we've known for decades, the power of face-to-face is in the intimate tutorial. The Oxford-Cambridge model really does work. People can't hide. And it's in that advisory capacity with a small number of students in technical fields like engineering and labs, in the humanities in studios, and in management and project teams, that students will actually come alive with perceiving the relevance of what we're learning. A fourth discovery, now it starts to get a little hotter, is that the process of sustained desired change starts in the positive emotional attractor. This is a psychophysiological state inside of us that pulls us to it in a very positive way. There is now ample evidence in terms of hormonal, neurological, and behavioral studies to say that it is in this state in which our immune system is working its best. Cognitively, we can handle the most complex concepts. We're more creative. We're more open to new ideas. We're more open to people, even people who are different, and neurogenesis can occur. We can grow new neurons in our brains in this state. The alternate state, the negative emotional attractor, which is also a key part of our physiology, pulls us to maintain. It's a survival mode. We need to survive, but we need to thrive. Thriving is important for the flourishing of the human spirit, but if you're about to be killed, it's a kind of moot point. So this back and forth ends up being very challenging, and even the ways we think about it in the human and social sciences are up for grabs, because I've made the observation now for almost 30, 40 years that we need complexity theory to understand humans, because, for example, almost every aspect of human behavior, not when you study it through a questionnaire, but when you study the actual behavior, is distributed under a Taylor series or power curve, not under a Gaussian or normal distribution. So a lot of the things we approach, even grade distributions, are absolutely absurd because real performance doesn't happen that way. Plot the number of papers published by the faculty in any given year or in any given 10 years. It doesn't form a normal distribution, it forms a power curve. The same thing happens in most realms of human behavior. So, but what draws us to the more extreme points is this positive characteristics. Now that's very tough because most of the time when people try to help us, they try to scare us into it. The reason treatment adherence is so low for almost every disease, 50% or lower, is because doctors and nurses try to help us the wrong way. They try to scare us. Look, if scare tactics worked, nobody would be smoking cigarettes. We know that it leads to, it not may lead to, it will lead to at least 7 or 8 different forms of cancer. It is guaranteed. We now know that the mechanism is while you're smoking, even if you stop for 40 years, you've already misfolded some of the proteins in your DNA because of the smoking. The question is, are your subsequent experiences helping you refold that and helping the genetic plasticity? And yet we go on to try to scare people. So as I like to say, constructive criticism is still criticism. Is it useful? On the whole, no. Now, a lot of people find this shocking because you really want to hit people with how silly they're doing. You can, but just know that you're invoking revenge. You're not helping learning. So the dilemma that we have around all of this is that as we do all of these fMRI studies and understand the internal mechanisms, we start to appreciate how powerful these positive attractors are. And that leads to the 5th discovery of the importance of coaching with compassion. I'm not going to go over a lot of the details because Jean-Manuel already did, but the idea is quite simply, if we try to motivate people to learn or change, whether it's in our classrooms or in our organizations or in our families, the challenge is how do we appeal with compassion, with caring? Well, when you do the detailed research, you find out that people open up to possibilities when you approach them about their dreams, not about their problems. So the whole idea, the whole model of helping people to problems is misguided. I think it's why most psychotherapy doesn't work. I know it's why most higher education is not very effective. And now we know why most even medical practice it loses a lot of its impact. Because people keep thinking we can motivate people by, an elbow or a hit, and we don't. We motivate them by their dreams, by their values, by caring. Oddly enough, the dreams are not goals. People hate this these days when I say this because I produced some of the early research that said goals were important, specific goals. We now know that specific goals only help in certain situations. In most situations, pushing for more specific goals actually inhibits learning. And the data is now building on this over the past 15 years. So we're doing a lot to try to advocate coaching. Here at Esade, at Case Western, we have a coaching research lab where we're trying to stimulate a lot more research about this. Hopefully we'll have a new master's degree launched in about a year and a half. But the idea is to try to reverse this inclination people have to fix someone else. When in fact, if we take a little more compassionate approach to caring and to diving into what's their purpose, what's their intent. Now, I'm not saying that negative is never relevant. Of course it is. We need to have a balance. But the balance is all too often shifted toward the negative. Now that leads me, because of the compassion and the PEA, to all these experiences that we know through our relationships help us to renew. We know that mindfulness activities really do help in every way imaginable the body rebuild itself, from new neurons to your immune system to your ability to interact with others. Yes, plenty of evidence now proves that meditation helps. Yoga helps. Tai Chi helps. We know that prayer helps. The caveat here, it has to be praying to a loving God. If you're praying to a vengeful God, it turns out it stimulates the stress hormones. We know that feeling hopeful about the future helps, which is a signal that right now the crisis in Catalonia is going to need some different kind of leadership. The crisis in America, the crisis in the UK, the crisis in Japan. Actually, in just about every country in the world, we're suffering these increasing separations, this dialectical tension. And in fact, when people are worried about the future, they're not open to change. So we are institutionalizing more and more conflict. And for the youth who may absorb this unconsciously in terms of all this fear and concern and conflict, we are damaging their genes, their genetic makeup. We now know this. That's the challenge for us. And for those of us who work at a university, how can we nurture hope in a time when people feel deeply and passionately in conflict? Compassion helps, caring for others, being in a loving relationship, having dogs, cats. I mean, it could be horses or monkeys because it's the stroking that's key. Helping the elderly or people less fortunate is really important, especially helping elderly professors. But the very notion is that even things like humor and playfulness play a key role in helping us as humans readjust our hormonal and our processes to allow us to learn. So, all of these discoveries have been things that have been fascinating. I'd say with my colleagues, hard fought against apathy, indifference, in some cases, the Philistines of prior methods. But the idea is to keep pushing it out. I mean, for example, Dan Goleman and I just developed a new test last year to try to help people look at how your balance of renewal, parasympathetic activities, and stress activities are going in a given week. And we've now put this through multiple tests, statistical tests. We're trying to finish the paper. It works. We now have a very interesting study of personal sustainability. And we hope we can get it out there so that people can use it. Because in looking at what's causing it, you start to have the conscious choice, going back to a key phrase and concept from William James, of volition, to up the number of renewal moments in your week and decrease, if you can, the number of stress. Very often we can't decrease the stress, but we can up the number of renewal. And one of the insights in this first research study, actually 3 studies, has been that the variety of renewal activities is a very powerful predictor of engagement, of your motivation, of your sense of well-being, of your ability to be empathic, of a negative relationship against depression and anxiety. So I think we have a lot to continue learning about and then can be very useful. So what I'd like to do is end by a last thought, by reminding you as I come back to the beginning that every one of these discoveries along the way has been exciting, but I wouldn't have gotten to any of them if it wasn't for key other people. So the working with others, leadership is a relationship. You can't be a leader without followers. Every caring relationship we have in our families is a caring relationship. The more we slip into thinking of it instrumentally and focusing on the ends only, the more we slip out of being human, about being caring. Social media is not social. We now know that the more people use everything from texting to Twitter to Instagram, the more depressed they are and the more isolated they are. The medical research is now becoming very clear about this. I'd like to thank Max Boyson, my physics teacher in high school. Max Boyson was a dive bomber pilot in the Pacific Theater of World War II. He was teaching in his high school in New York, and he approached 6 of us when we were finishing our junior year, our first year of physics, whether or not we wanted to study a second year of physics. And the 6 of us jumped at the chance. We were very much nerds. I still am one. And what he said was, we're going to study physics now through the great experiment. So the first project at the beginning of the year was for us to calculate Newton's gravitational constant, the big G. So we got the little piece of equipment we needed, and we dug into reading about it, designed the study, worked with him about how we'd collect the data. We spent 2 weeks doing that, then 2 weeks collecting the data. Then we reported out to him, and we discovered that the textbooks were wrong, that at the 6th decimal point, they started to veer into a different number given our results. Max Boyson, God bless him, at that moment that we're presenting, absolutely scared about what he's going to say, he said, well, you know, you might be onto something important. I've told you that sometimes great discoveries, breakthroughs happen with naive observers, but we have to replicate. That's what science is about. He said, so I want your team to do the study again, report back to me in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, I'll call a faculty member I know at Columbia University in physics department and arrange an appointment. We can go in and meet with him, and another one at the Brookhaven National Laboratories that had an accelerator. And I will arrange meetings with 2 prominent physicists where you can explain your data and see where the discovery might go. We got so excited. We said, oh my God, we're walking in the path of Sir Isaac Newton. And we did the study over the 2 weeks, and we reported out to Max Boyson, and we'd made a mistake the first time. The textbooks were right. But in those 2 weeks, we were alive beyond belief. We didn't think about girls. We didn't think about music. We were thinking about, well, we were nerds. We were thinking about that study. If there is anybody who nurtured my curiosity in my life, it was Max Boyson. My 2 longest-term colleagues and mentors, David McClellan, who also passed away, as Max Boyson has, David Kolb. I remember when David Kolb was my first department chair, I gave up running 2 research consulting companies, became a professor full-time, and I'm working my ass off at this point. I'm working more hours, as my wife can note, than when I was running 2 companies at the same time. I had 23 doctoral students that I was advisor to, not just teaching. So I go into my department chair, it was my friend who got me into this whole field, Dave Kolb, and I said, Dave, help me out here. He said, it's your own fault, Richard. I said, what? I expect a little empathy here. He said, no. He said, you expected sympathy, but no. He said, it's your own fault. This is academia. Nothing's so important it can't wait another year. And then he started to talk about the faculty role as kind of post-adolescent retirement, which I have since learned had nothing to do with reality. But Dave Kolb was very much of somebody who tried to help me adjust. Again, I would like to thank Carlos Lozada and Javier Mendoza for your faith in me to bring me here. Sefidi Soler, my dinner buddy that we explore every new restaurant in the Barcelona metropolitan area, and my first department chair here at Esade. And it's been very important because, you know, among the motivational reasons for me for 17 years now being on the faculty and coming to Barcelona 2 or 3 times every year has been the food and the wine. I mean, I like the colleagueship, but the food and the wine and the colleagueship really helps. And of course, my 2 closest friends here, Ricardo Solavos and João Manuel Batista, you've taught me so much about emotions and emotional intelligence that I would like to signify it by a very important symbol. I can't wear it because it clashes, but anyway, a very important symbol about emotional connection. I would not have had this chance if it wasn't for my mother and my father. And as Joe Mael said, I owed a lot. I mean, as far as I can tell, just about all of the early parts of it. And my mother, despite her heavy impact on teaching me courage and how to defend against all the Northern Europeans and all the Americans who were out to get me, Greeks of that era really did have this whole xenos, you know. Now, she never told me to hate Catalans because Catalans never invaded Greece, so you've always been safe. But my father lived the life of an expatriate. I mean, he came to America for a chance to escape this intermingling of fascism and communism that was embroiling Greece in the 30s, the inevitable, which they assumed would be death for all of the young men, not fighting the Italian army. My apologies to my Italian colleagues right now, but they were assured that they would all die fighting the Germans because no one in 1938 thought that anybody could beat them. And so he came to America. He left his family. He had a brother who had been in America, who was in America, but it was a chance for a dream. And that's what I got from my father, was pursuing the dream. And sometimes it's very painful, and sometimes you have to sacrifice a lot, but the dream occurs. So, in closing, I'd like again to express my deepest gratitudes to all of you and my friends and colleagues for this amazing honor. And may God bless the new adventures and excitement that we have coming for us in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tot seguit, el Cor Salut Blanquerna ens oferirà un interludi musical. membres de la taula presidencial, senyores i senyors, no puc començar la cloenda d'aquest emotiu acte de concessió del doctorat honoris causa de la Universitat Ramon Llull al professor Boyatzis de cap altra manera que no sigui amb unes paraules d'agraïment i de felicitació. The first thing we have to do is to congratulate. We have to congratulate Professor Boyatzis for this honoris causa degree he received from our university at the proposal of Esade. I will not lengthen my words unnecessarily by repeating the merits or some of the merits that the promoter of the new doctor honoris causa and our good friend in common has widely described a while ago. Few people have such a unique and brilliant career as a Professor Boyatzis. It is for us, for this school and for the entire university, a great honor that Professor Boyatzis has agreed to accept this award and therefore to strengthen his relationship with our university. You gave us today a very beautiful gift, a very beautiful present. That is why we must say thank you so much. Few people have the sensitivity and the generosity to let be honored by the people who admire them and do it naturally. Few, too, have the chance and the joy of doing it surrounded by their family, to whom I also want to congratulate and to express my thanks. Congratulations then, Professor Boyatzis and family, and thanks for accepting this proposal. I think that this award will do nothing else than to extend and intensify the relationship that, as the promoter said, came from a long time ago. It is true that sometimes universities honor people who are far from their reality and far from their day-to-day, but they are reference. However, it is also true that there are times when we do that to people that we have close. And both ways, the two approaches are compatible. They are reference, and we are pleased to count them among ours. I have been able to witness the deep respect and esteem of many people from Esade to Professor Boyatzis, and that is good, it is very good. Today, we honor not only a brilliant scientist and professor, but also a collaborator and a friend. This was how we saw and noticed it in the eyes of Dr. Baptista Foguet. Gràcies, Joan Manel, per aquesta iniciativa i felicitats pel teu Parlament. També és just i alhora és imprescindible felicitar i agrair a l'escola que ha pres la iniciativa d'aquest doctorat honoris causa i fer extensiva la felicitació a tot el seu claustre. Si bé deixeu-me que ho personalitzi en l'equip directiu i molt especialment en la directora general de la institució, la doctora Vieto. Sovint, la responsabilitat de les institucions d'educació superior i de recerca no s'acaba fent la seva tasca ordinària, la tasca del dia a dia, sigui la seva tasca formativa o la seva tasca de recerca. La responsabilitat de les institucions educatives s'estén a molts altres aspectes i, d'entre d'altres, està el fet de contribuir a generar referents intel·lectuals que poden ajudar a d'altres en la seva orientació. Totes les escoles i facultats d'una universitat han de jugar aquest paper. I Esade, d'una manera especial, sempre l'ha jugat. Avui, junts, contribuïm a assenyalar un referent, un nou referent, en la persona i en la trajectòria del professor Boyatzis. Gràcies, doctora Vieto, per liderar l'equip que ha pres la iniciativa. Són moltes les coses importants que avui s'han dit aquí, de l'obra i pensament del doctor Boyatzis, ja sigui ell mateix en la seva brillant conferència d'acceptació del doctorat o bé a través de la glosa que n'ha fet el doctor Baptista Foguet. Com que no voldria allargar la meva intervenció, els convidaria a rellegir, tan bon punt en tinguin l'ocasió, els dos parlaments. No obstant, no puc deixar passar aquesta oportunitat per subratllar alguna idea del que avui s'ha dit. Podria quedar-me, si volen, amb moltes coses, com ara l'humil i savi agraïment que el professor Boyatzis ha fet amb moltíssima gent, començant per la seva família, per acabar amb els seus mestres i els seus amics, tot passant pels seus companys d'aquesta escola i a tots els que varen fer possible que aquesta col·laboració comencés cap a l'any 2001. També em podria quedar amb allò pel qual és ben conegut i que és l'impacte del seu treball en el lideratge, especialment en el lideratge de les organitzacions, tot i que és aplicable a molts altres camps. El que ens ha dit sobre la constatació que l'efectivitat del lideratge està fortament correlacionada amb un, i cito textualment del seu text, comportament emocionalment i socialment intel·ligent, hauria de fer trontollar molts principis enquistats en encara massa persones i institucions. Però m'aturaré breument en les reflexions que ell mateix o que el doctor Batista Foguet ha fet a través de la seva laudatio. Ens han portat a la primera de les missions de la universitat. Ens han referit al binomi ensenyament-aprenentatge. No en va, el professor Boyatzis és un innovador també com a professor. Destacaré només dues idees. La primera parla de motivació. El professor Boyatzis ens esperona a intentar assegurar que el desenvolupament de cada persona es posi al servei de la seva personal visió de la vida, al servei del que personalment es vulgui proposar en la seva vida. I d'aquesta manera ens alerta dels riscos que el desenvolupament de les persones estigui pilotat externament per les visions dels altres sobre el subjecte del seu desenvolupament. Al tall d'exemple, els professors i els tutors hauríem d'acompanyar l'estudiant en el seu camí i mai forçar-lo a agafar un camí en el que dubta. I afegeix, i cito textualment, vàrem descobrir que si iniciem un procés d'ajuda a una persona considerant els seus somnis sobre un futur que desitja, no els seus objectius ni l'estratègia per assolir-los, sinó els seus somnis, és més probable que aquesta persona canviï i persisteixi en la cerca del seu desenvolupament. I per si algú li quedés algun dubte, ho justifica a través dels canvis hormonals i neurològics que es poden observar. Dit d'una altra manera, si un persegueix els seus somnis i ho fa amb una actitud constructiva, una actitud amable, és molt probable que trobi l'energia per aprendre i també per canviar. La segona idea que voldria subratllar tracta de mètode, si volen, de mètode docent. El professor Boyatzis ens deia que seria convenient variar els estils d'aprenentatge a les classes i en els programes d'estudis per involucrar tots els estils d'aprenentatge i no limitar-se a reflectir les preferències dels diferents estils d'aprenentatge del professorat. Ens parlava del conegut concepte recollit en la teoria del canvi intencional i afegia: he après que el canvi desitjat i sostenible comença amb l'activació de l'atractor emocional positiu, activació que ha de ser més freqüent que la de l'atractor emocional negatiu, i això és un factor clau per avançar al llarg de les diverses etapes de la teoria del canvi intencional. Compartiran amb mi reflexions importants amb conseqüències directes en el dia a dia de tota institució educativa. De fet, i sigui per a la primera o per a la segona idea que he volgut subratllar, el doctor Batista Foguet ens deia que el professor Boyatzis havia estudiat el per què i el com les persones canvien de forma volguda i de manera sostinguda en el temps. I afegia que la contribució del professor Boyatzis ens permet comprendre el rol positiu dels nostres somnis, a obrir-nos als canvis i a desenvolupar competències que facilitin que els somnis es puguin convertir en una realitat. Vaig acabant i ho voldria fer posant en evidència una realitat que no ens pot passar desapercebuda i que, de fet, ens ha fet observar, ens hi ha fet parar atenció el doctor Batista Foguet a l'inici de les seves paraules. El doctor Boyatzis ha citat avui a moltes persones, gent d'aquí i gent de fora. Algunes de les persones d'aquí avui no ens han pogut acompanyar, d'altres sí. Però ha citat a 3 persones que també han estat distingides com a doctores honoris causa per aquesta universitat. I ho ha fet per emmarcar el seu treball, per agrair també les seves contribucions. Per ordre cronològic han estat el doctor Henry Mintzberg, l'any 2008, a proposta d'aquesta escola i apadrinat pel doctor Xavier Mendoza, el doctor Antonio Damasio, l'any 2010, a proposta de la Facultat de Psicologia i Ciències de l'Educació de l'Esport Blanquerna i apadrinat pel doctor Ignasi Ibern, i el doctor Howard Gardner, l'any 2016, a proposta també de la Facultat de Psicologia i Ciències de l'Educació de l'Esport Blanquerna i apadrinat pel doctor Josep Gallifa. Un fet, com deia, que no ens pot passar desapercebut per l'especial significat que té, manllevant una idea del Joan Manel, i cito textualment, aquesta seqüència no és accidental, sinó que il·lustra més aviat la visió d'aquesta universitat envers el futur i la inversió en el desenvolupament personal del nostre alumnat. Deixin-me que clogui aquest acte amb unes paraules del nostre homenatjat. El doctor Boyatzis deia al principi del seu Parlament unes paraules breus però gens lleugeres. Ens deia que el desenvolupament de les idees és un canvi pedregós i que el que ell busca, i cito textualment del seu text, són nous descobriments que puguin ajudar a les persones lliures a expressar els seus somnis, a sentir la passió, la vocació i a través del contagi emocional entusiasmar i inspirar els altres a aprendre, a canviar i a fer-se preguntes. Moltes gràcies per la seva atenció.